Hello and welcome. I'm Ricky with MojoPlays, and today we're doing something special. We're taking a deep dive into the hardest bosses we've encountered in gaming. A great boss battle can give you a real sense of accomplishment when you beat it. Whether they serve to teach you the game's mechanics, provide you with special equipments and power-ups, or frustrate you into becoming a better player, a boss's gameplay and design are paramount to a fun and rewarding experience. And on that note, let's dive in.
I see you have made it this far.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at video game bosses that are far too hard to come first. Number 10, Megara the Fury, Hades. In your various runs to escape the underworld, you'll face one of 3 furries as a boss of the first area. Each fight is a bit different, but the one you'll face first is Megara. If you haven't gotten used to the combat or what boons you collected, Meg acts as a trial by fire. Her lunge and whip attacks can close the distance between you quickly. But after losing some health, she'll make it even easier on herself with projectiles, massive flame attacks, and minions to keep you occupied. The game is designed so that this fight grows easier as you try more runs. But on a first attempt, and likely several after that, Meg brings the pain.
Oh, Christ.
Number 9, Phantom, Devil May Cry.
What a big surprise.
Since the game is about a guy who hunts monsters and demons, players may have expected to go up against a variety of deadly foes in Devil May Cry. But we weren't expecting the first boss to be a giant spider made of stone and magma. The Phantom boss fight from the first game is certainly where Capcom turns up the heat. Its large size doesn't slow it down, and the ferocity with which it unleashes attacks and counterattacks is fierce. It naturally has some detrimental fire-based moves, but you should also be wary of its stinger. Its stone body also means it's well fortified. High offense and defense, and a moveset with varied range make the Phantom a big early problem. Number 8, Scorpion Sentinel, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Heads up. What in the hell?
Before Cloud and his newfound allies can destroy their first Mako reactor, he and Barret must take on a mechanical monstrosity. Even though players knew it was coming, the Scorpion Sentinel received a major boost in power for Final Fantasy VII Remake. The boss comes in a surprising 4 phases, all of which use heavy artillery.
Thought you were the expert.
So what's your brilliant plan, genius? That didn't work either.
Between its destructive guns, intimidating tail, and giant claws, it can deal out a lot of damage. Meanwhile, it feels like you're merely chipping away at it and surviving until you can build up a heavy blow. Oh, and it can heal during the final phase, which is always a pain in a boss fight.
I got your number. There goes another. Now's our chance to do some real damage.
Number 7, Ingalls, Nier Automata. The opening sequence of Nier Automata is thrilling to say the least, but it's also fairly long with no checkpoints and ends with a multi-phase fight against a literal walking building. The Ingalls' immense of size is definitely discouraging, but it's got a bite to back up its bark.
I'll provide support.
At first, that comes in the form of gigantic saw blade arms that severely limit where you can safely stand. You'll also have to scale its body, dealing with minions, which actually serves as a bit of a breather before the onslaught continues. The final phase continues with saw blades, but also rockets and a huge laser. If you die, you not only start the fight over, but the entire stage. Ouch.
Die already!
Number 6, Father Gascoigne, Bloodborne. While you may come across the cleric beast before him, Father Gascoigne is the first true boss of Bloodborne, and he's a mighty one at that. Fought in a dreary graveyard, he'll first fight with an axe and a pistol, giving him both short and long range. Of course, this being a From Software game, your character will certainly feel it if they're hit by either one. At around 1/3 health, he'll transform into a beast, gaining attacks that are much quicker and far deadlier. Like many first bosses from the acclaimed studio, Father Gascoigne forces you to become comfortable with the unforgiving mechanics by killing you a ton of times. Number 5, Mirai, Ninja Gaiden. Team Ninja's series revival is a brutally tough game, something a lot of players realized during the first boss fight. After making it through hordes of ninjas, Ryu must face a nunchaku-wielding Mirai. Trying to rush him, slicing and dicing like dealing with standard enemies is a terrible idea. Mirai is adept at blocking your blows and can deal out a quick combo or perform an annoying grab that'll make you regret getting close. It's best to play defensively and let him come to you. That way, you can dodge and retaliate in turn. Even still, Mirai's quick reaction time and powerful combos mean Ryu will suffer at least a handful of defeats. Number 4, the Keiran, The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. Geralt of Rivia may be used to fighting all manner of nasty monsters, but no player was expecting something as strong as the Keiran to appear as early on as it does in The Witcher 2. It's more than likely you'll still be getting the hang of the controls by the time you face it, a fact that Keiran fully exploits. Between its poison sprays and giant tentacles, the boss can cover the arena with a lot of possible damage. You're meant to trap one of the 6 tentacles to cut it off, or just be really good at timing. Regardless, Geralt should never stop moving. All it takes is one health draining tentacle slap to instantly put you on edge. Number 3, Frike, Returnal. Returnal doesn't mess around, and there are many elements that make you aware of that. The first boss, Frike, has a variety of high damage attacks you would expect from a late game boss, but certainly not a first one. Many of them are long range, whether they come in the form of projectiles, an AoE wave, or a ferocious beam. Across 3 phases, its attacks only grow faster and more powerful. After the game's launch, even developer House Marquee stated Frike was the cause of most player deaths. Granted, that's partially because you won't have as many resources that early on, but Frike should in no way be discounted. Number 2, Udex Gundyr, Dark Souls 3. From Software's Dark Souls series naturally has some tough opening fights, but we believe the studio saved its hardest for the 3rd entry. Like many boss encounters from the studio, Udex Gundyr is twice the player's size and hits like a truck. However, his speed is a bit higher than you'd expect from someone decked out in heavy armor. His halberd has high range, whether he's stabbing you from afar or swinging across the arena. And if you're unlucky enough to be hit by one, you may as well go ahead and heal, because if another one comes, you'll be in serious trouble. The boss AI knows how to keep things varied though, also bringing quick shoulder charges and a stomp that can briefly stun you. Number 1, Vanguard Demon, Demon Soul. It's hard to top a boss that you're not meant to be. Players face the Vanguard Demon at the end of the tutorial in Demon Soul and are wholly expected to lose. When you do, you progress to the main game, meaning you have to beat it without dying. You get another chance much later, but since you're still getting used to the high difficulty and have little to no resources, the first encounter offers the greater challenge by quite a lot. It may be slow and lumbering, but that doesn't matter when its axe can demolish anything around it. There are many From Software victories players wear like a badge of honor, and defeating the Vanguard Demon during the tutorial is one of them. Which opening boss did you find to be the biggest threat?
Ever stubborn, aren't you? Maybe my whip might make you reconsider whatever it is that you're attempting here.
Don't worry, I'm not as fragile as I look. Try to kill me, if you can.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at optional bosses who are so hard most of us choose to not deal with them.
Then, my path is clear.
Number 10, Sharon, Hades. In Hades, players are taught to fear their imposing father. But as it turns out, it's the ferryman of the dead we should all be afraid of.
Charon must be nearby.
Sharon usually acts as a merchant, but after beating the final boss once, you'll occasionally spot a bag of 300 obols in his shop. Money ain't free, though, and an annoyed Sharon will kick off the fight when you take it.
Charon, look, I can explain. It's just, I've grown very accustomed to taking stuff.
For someone so ancient, Sharon moves with startling speed. His wave attacks cover a lot of ground, and his ore packs a surprising punch. The fight's difficulty can vary depending on how many power-ups you've gathered along the way. Regardless, it's a tricky bout, and we'd just as soon leave the man's money alone. Number 9, the Nameless King, Dark Souls 3. From Software's catalog overflows with brutal boss fights, both optional and required. When it comes to the Dark Souls series, we're good with never fighting the Nameless King again for the rest of our lives. The first phase is just plain unfair as the king rides around on his pet wyvern, trying to stomp you or burn you to a crisp. Many of these attacks come from out of nowhere since the camera's too close up to include the beast's full body. But even after that, the king himself is just as frustrating. He's a lot faster than you'd expect, and his moveset perfectly shows why he's the king, especially his lightning attacks. Number 8, Sigrun, God of War. The fight against the Valkyrie Queen may be well known by this point, but we have a feeling most players never got a chance to beat her. Even getting to the fight is a major uphill battle. You must first find and defeat 8 ogre Valkyries, most of which will claim victory over you at least once.
Watch out!
If you don't give up, Sigrun will probably make you since she compiles most features of the others into one gloriously maddening package. You'll need to constantly switch between blocking, parrying, and attacking at the proper moments to stand a chance. Even then, frequent deaths are a guarantee.
Thank you, friends. You have saved the Valkyries.
Number 7, Absolute Radiance, Hollow Knight Godmaster. Hollow Knight is a fairly hard Metroidvania, and its final boss, the Radiance, is a pain and a half to deal with. So in one of the game's expansions, Godmaster gave us the chance to fight an even harder version of her. Many of us simply said, no thanks. To even get to her, you have to defeat 5 boss rushes without dying. We shouldn't have to tell you how difficult that can be. Absolute Radiance uses the same attacks as her predecessor, they're just a bit worse. All of her moves deal more damage while her range attacks come with more projectiles. She makes the familiar seem unfamiliar, and she's fought across 6 phases. Number 6, Inner Age 3, Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion. When Nintendo released the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2, it capped everything off with a fight against a brainwashed Agent 3. Across 4 phases, you'll have every single Splatoon skill put to the test, and it isn't even the fight we're talking about. Because as bad as sanitized Agent 3 is, the optional rematch is multiplied tenfold. Inner Agent 3 comes with an extra phase, but that's far from the only increase in difficulty. They're able to dodge your attacks with ease, as well as unleash their own with higher accuracy and a variety of weaponry. No matter how good you are online, this fight will make you question it. Number 5. Demon of Hatred. Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice. The name of this boss is pretty accurate considering hatred is a dominating emotion during its fight. After beating the Divine Dragon and returning to the sculptor's idol of Ashinka Outskirts, you'll get the opportunity to face this boss, but we really recommend that you don't unless you want to rage, that is. The Demon of Hatred may be a bit slow, but he makes up for it with a wide range of deadly attacks, many of which are fire-based and have different ranges. Fairly easy for the demon to deplete your health in just a few blows, though you can only whittle away at his. Number 4. Yasmat, Final Fantasy XII. The Final Fantasy franchise has some of the hardest optional bosses in gaming history. And while many players likely skip out on most of them, Yasmat from Final Fantasy XII is on a whole other level of tedium. With 50 million HP, you have your work cut out for you even if you're as strong as you can possibly be. At half health, Yasmat will reduce the damage it takes, while at 1/5 health, it increases its already impressive damage output. It also uses a move towards the end of its life that can reflect your own healing spells onto it. This fight can take hours at a time, so we can't blame any players that didn't want to commit to it. Number 3. Yozora, Kingdom Hearts 3 Remai.
Then, I was told to save Sora.
Huh? Then what's with the weapon?
Time to end this.
Like Final Fantasy, the Kingdom Hearts series has many optional boss fights that are tough enough to dissuade most players from attempting them. Yozora is the latest of the bunch, fought at the end of the third game's Remind DLC. After completing the main story bit, you'll unlock the option to face 13 bosses.
Gotcha!
There's no indicator that a secret fight against the mysterious Yozora unlocks afterwards. Even still, he has a reputation. He's wicked fast, can teleport, has a variety of ranged and melee attacks, and can possibly steal your health and items. Of course, being a secret boss in an RPG, he's also incredibly durable and frighteningly strong.
I guess that my powers aren't needed yet.
Number 2. Elizabeth, Persona 3.
I make my living as an elevator attendant, but I know several effective ways of inflicting pain.
Atlas added the Velvet Room's attendant, Elizabeth, as a secret boss for New Game Plus players. But only those with the utmost patience should attempt fighting her, and even then, who needs this kind of hassle? There's a laundry list of rules to follow, not present in other fights. You must fight her without any allies, you can't use personas or accessories that negate her attacks, nor those that reflect them. If you break one of her rules, she fully heals herself before insta-killing you.
I have chosen Persona.
She also fully heals once her health drops below a certain point and cycles through different personas each turn, forcing you to adapt on the fly.
You have overcome the most difficult obstacle I've placed in your path. You shall receive your reward, the same as always.
Number 1. Demi-Fiend, Megami Tensei series. Clearly, JRPGs are a haven of challenging optional bosses, and no boss is more worthy of skipping than the Demi-Fiend from the Megami Tensei series. Originally the protagonist of the third game, the Demi-Fiend shows up in a handful of other entries as a boss. If you begin one of his fights with an ability that counters him, the Demi-Fiend insta-kills you. That's not a fluke either, as he has another insta-kill attack that he can use during combat on top of all the other powerful ones. He'll also heal once he gets down to half his health bar and spawn another minion every time you get rid of one. These fights are only meant for players who really want to put themselves through the ringer.
Wow, you're pretty good. Didn't think you'd actually beat him.
Which optional boss do you skip every time?
Freedom comes at a price, milady.
You speak truly.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most challenging mini-bosses in gaming. Number 10, Mad Clown Puppet, Lies of P. Any game inspired by From Software's Souls-like formula is bound to be challenging, and Lies of P has plenty of bosses to make players rage. But when it comes to those of the mini variety, the Mad Clown Puppet takes the cake. You'll find this walking nightmare near the Estelle Opera House in the Entertainment District. He specializes in melee combat, spinning around in a tornado of fists and directly following it up with another attack to catch players off guard. Trying to keep your distance can be tricky since he can also lunge with a belly attack and has an extendable punch. Needless to say, your health will quickly drain unless you properly block and do it often. Number 9, Malformed Typhonops, Returnal. As a roguelike third-person shooter, Returnal can get pretty stressful. In fact, we'd say the whole game is a recipe for being on edge. But few things within it make us feel dread like the Malformed Typhonops. These mini-bosses can only be found in the 6th and final biome, which is fitting considering their power. Their attacks come quickly, whether they're long or close range, and each one is hard to avoid. As if hitting hard and fast didn't make it deadly enough, its attacks can also cause your suit to malfunction in different ways. Essentially status effects, these malfunctions can be a major pain to deal with as a giant, speeding beast is hurling your way. Number 8, Muffet, Undertale. It may come as a surprise, given her incredible music and unique battle system, but Muffet is actually a mini-boss. Well, you could have fooled us. She's harder than most actual bosses in the game. During the fight, she'll hurl spiders and baked goods at your tiny heart, as well as sick her pet monster Muffin on you. Why yes, Undertale is a strange game. Just like her music, Muffet's attacks move at a ferocious tempo, unless you bribe her with gold to go easy. But both the option to attack and spare have been disabled for you on account of Muffet webbing you up. Creator Toby Fox admitted he made Muffet too hard, even after nerfing her several times during development. Number 7, Lynels, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Upon the release of Breath of the Wild, Lynels quickly gained a reputation for being the most challenging foes in the game. These centaur-like creatures have stunning speed and strength, and like many other enemies in the game, come in different colors and power levels. Whether they're firing off elemental arrows, charging Link like a raging bull, or emitting AoE attacks like deadly roars and massive fireballs, Lynels will certainly test the Hylian hero. DLC even added gold Lynels to up the ante for any players brave enough to face them. While they returned in Tears of the Kingdom, the endless possibilities of the weapon fuse mechanic made them easier to deal with. But here, they put up one hell of a fight. Number 6, Anti-Sora, Kingdom Hearts. Even with a slew of Disney characters to choose from, the hardest fight in Kingdom Hearts, at least against a mini-boss, is Anti-Sora. Players face off against multiple shadowy versions of the hero on Captain Hook's ship. However, once they reach the captain's quarters, the true fight begins. Anti-Sora has 3 health bars, surprising for a mini-boss. But it's by far his defensive strategy that makes this such a struggle. Not only can he produce copies of himself, but he also turns invulnerable when he flattens against the floor to run away. When he's on his last health bar, that evasive maneuver will also turn him invisible. Anytime you corner him, he'll likely vanish and hit you with a surprise attack. Number 5, Marauder, Doom Eternal.
You were never one of us.
Most enemies in Doom can be defeated with the sound strategy of never stop moving and never stop shooting. But with the Marauders, there's a bit of strategy to factor in with your reaction time. These mini-bosses have energy blasts for long range and a shotgun for short range, but they themselves can only be damaged when lunging with their axe. They also carry a shield, which, if hit too many times, can cause a wolf to spawn, making for 2 quick enemies that want to put you in the dirt. With such high defense and offense, as well as a minuscule window for when you can damage them, the Marauders will make the Slayer's job much more difficult. Number 4, Boost Guardian, Metroid Prime 2, Echoes. While most mini-bosses are hard simply due to their mechanics, others have environments that add to the challenge. The Boost Guardian from Metroid Prime 2 is one of those special, annoying cases. The fight takes place on Dark Aether, whose poisonous environment will be damaging Samus the entire time. Then there's the enemy itself. The Boost Guardian can roll into a ball, zipping across the area while invincible. It can also turn into a puddle, which damages Samus should she so much as dip a toe in. Interestingly, this fight had its difficulty increased just days before launch. But when the game was ported to Wii, the developers thankfully scaled it back. Number 3. Berserkers, God of War Ragnarok. We fully admit that the Valkyries from 2018's God of War are some of the hardest mini-bosses in gaming. But as we usually only include one entry per franchise, the Berserkers of Ragnarok just beat them out. These new behemoths will make the God of War look like the God of Kittens and Puppy Dogs. Each one can deplete your health bar with just a couple of attacks, though they all have their own frustrating qualities. One makes their attacks deal even more damage than normal with the Bifrost status effect. Another just happens to have 2 companions with them, making for a variety of damage to look out for. Berserkers, yeah, you got that right. Number 2. The Chained Ogre, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. When talking about the hardest challenges in video games, developer From Software is bound to show up sooner or later. And while yes, the Chained Ogre of Sekiro is imposing in both size and power, it has a unique quality that makes it more infuriating than almost anything else in the game. It's fought on a narrow path right next to a cliffside, which it just loves hurling players off the side of. It enjoys it so much, in fact, that it has 3 different throwing animations to look out for. Any of its regular attacks that land will definitely hurt. But it's the mini-boss's ability to dole out immediate death that has earned it the ire of players. Number 1. Shark Giants, Bloodborne. There's only one thing harder than a From Software fight, another From Software fight. But seriously, the Shark Giants from Bloodborne's Old Hunters DLC can burn in the deepest pits of the underworld. There are a handful of these monstrosities to face, but you'll find the most difficult fight down the well in Fishing Hamlet. The confined space makes avoiding attacks near impossible, which would be a huge problem in any other fight. Here, your enemy has the ability to eat you whole, so that's less than ideal. As if its power, range, and ferocity wasn't bad enough, a second Shark Giant will join the fray once the first is down to half its health. It'll take you all your mastery from across the game, and even that may not be enough. Which of these challenging mini-bosses caused you the most grief?
That was a great selection of opening bosses, optional bosses, and mini-bosses that hopefully kept you on your toes. I personally found Demon Souls' opening boss to be pretty tough, and I almost skipped the Demon of Hatred from Sekiro. As for mini-bosses, my favorites are definitely Lies of P's Mad Clown Puppet and Shark Giants from Bloodborne. Both are terrifying. Alright, now we're going to be taking a look at the hardest bosses throughout the decades, so let's take a trip down memory lane.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at video game bosses from the 90s that gave us a hard time.
You can't beat me.
Number 10, Death, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Death has had a notorious reputation throughout the Castlevania franchise, not just Dracula's Curse. Although, we're outing this iteration because of 2 things, the design of the arena and the projectiles. On top of the awkward layout of the stage, you'll have to predict Death's next moves while dodging all of the scythes flying around. Even though you can destroy the scythes, they will eventually spawn back in and at random points with different patterns than before. Be mindful of your position and prioritize the scythes before trying to wail on Death. Number 9, Ridley, Super Metroid. first encounter with Ridley wasn't as much of a hassle compared to many other Metroid villains. No, the second encounter is where the tension rises. Samus and the giant lizard fight in a vertically narrow room, and our bounty hunter is forced to stay somewhat close to the center in order to avoid a fiery death. But with Ridley's massive amount of health and vicious attacks that can kill you quick, you'll be itching to bum rush him just to get out of there ASAP. Number 8, Lavos, Chrono Trigger. Lavos is tough from the get-go, thanks to the typical, you haven't even seen my final form bosses we've come to expect from JRPGs. First form, of course, isn't going to be super tough as he simply reuses attacks from bosses prior. The second form requires you to target his head and arms to lower his body defense and prevent it from recovering HP. In the final form, 30,000 HP and the ability to absorb elemental attacks. You might want a guide for this fight. Number 7, Emerald Weapon, Final Fantasy VII. You were expecting maybe Sephiroth, or perhaps Ozma from Final Fantasy IX. Oh, absolutely not. Tough bosses, but not as tough as the Emerald Weapon. A mech that is only weak to lightning-based attacks, boasts 1 million HP, and sits at level 99. That is the thing you are fighting against. And may God have mercy on your soul when it uses its Emerald Shoot ability or counters with Revenge Stamp. This fight is why many JRPG fans advise that you farm every chance you get. Never back out of a fight so you can get that XP because you got dudes like this running around. Number 6, Whizpig, Diddy Kong Racing. Interestingly enough, Whizpig is arguably the hardest of the first-party N64 games we all typically play. Diddy Kong Racing overall gets oppressive with its rubber banding after the first third of the campaign. Whizpig makes it 10 times worse. In order to beat him in both races, you will need to hit almost every zipper while using the trick of letting off the gas before hitting the zipper for maximum boost. Should you accidentally drive off the road, you may as well restart the whole race. Number 5, Akuma, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Akuma to this day still sends a chill down the spines of Street Fighter players. Even his debut game makes him ridiculously hard. First off, this is Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Emphasis on turbo, because you need to be fast with your inputs to get through most of your fights. As for Akuma, he has many moves similar to Ryu and Ken's, but he does deal more damage and can use Demon Dash to essentially negate attacks while simultaneously closing the distance between you two. Better bring your A game. You win! Number 4, Death Egg Robot, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Whereas most of the bosses on this list are here because of massive health pools and insane attack powers and patterns, the Death Egg Robot is here for a different reason. See, just about every boss fight usually comes after running through a course. Standard video game fare, right? Well, the Death Egg Robot is the level. There is nothing preceding it, meaning you have no chance of grabbing rings before reaching Robotnik's mech. In other words, you will have to fight this thing without getting hit a single time. Good luck. Number 3, Shao Kahn, Mortal Kombat 2.
Prepare to die.
When it comes to fighting games of the 90s, Shao Kahn always rears his ugly head into the conversation. The Emperor of Outworld has always been one of the most difficult bosses in gaming in general, and to this day, his debut in Mortal Kombat 2 is still arduous.
Is that your best?
This is the kind of guy that will rush you down and quickly hurl an insult before you can get back up. And yes, he pulls the same BS input reading that so many fighting game bosses are given. Super fair fight. Number 2, Wily Capsule, Mega Man 7. When a developer says, let's make a crazy hard boss, you can almost guarantee they are about to make something wildly grueling. Case in point, the Wily Capsule. Wily uses this machine to turn invisible and utilize a plethora of different attacks that can make the screen look like a madhouse. Plus, if an attack hits, there's a good chance it will freeze you long enough for another hit to register. You are going to need to utilize every power you've nabbed from the Robot Masters. And even then, don't be surprised if you have to rely on your standard pea shooter of an arm cannon. Number 1, Culex, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the 7 Stars. Funny enough, you could play through all of Super Mario RPG and never see Culex a single time. This malevolent being lies behind a secret door, awaiting your arrival for a fight of epic proportions. Should you choose to challenge him, you might find yourself severely underpowered. Culex boasts 12,000 HP and holds no weaknesses. On top of that, the 4 crystals that sit in front of him can grant monumental boosts to his attack power and defenses. Despite defeating Smithy, you may want to try and grind even more before facing this big baddie from another dimension. Who do you think was the hardest boss of 90s gaming? Did it make our list?
I need more power.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 hardest video game bosses between the years 2000 and 2009.
Let's win this. I know we could do it.
Number 10, Phanta Manta, Super Mario Sunshine. Mario's games have typically held back their punches until the final boss. Well, in some games. Sunshine, on the other hand, has earned a bit of infamy thanks to Phanta Manta. The shadowy manta ray has covered Hotel Delfino in electrical goop, and the only way to defeat it is by spraying it with water. Thing is that, as you spray it, Phanta Manta will break up into smaller and faster versions of itself, making it easy for you to get launched into another spawn or the electric goop. Basically, you'll be at the mercy of water physics and your own spatial awareness to make it out alive. Number 9, Vertigo, Resident Evil 4. Even in its 2023 remake, Vertigo was a tough boss to go against. However, the original still retains his reputation as the hardest boss in Resident Evil 4. It's not necessarily because of him, rather it's because of how the original RE4 plays. In this iteration, Leon can only shoot when he's standing still, which means you are constantly having to run, stop, shoot, and so on. Of course, others will point to the random quick time events that are required to dodge some of his attacks. We'll forever cherish RE4 as it was, but if the remake was your first time experiencing it, you did get the better version. Number 8, Puppet Ganon, The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. We've always anticipated a fight with Ganon. In any form would be a real test of strength, but a puppet form? It sounds ridiculous on paper, but this Ganon isn't about to grow his nose to use as a sword. Puppet Ganon comes swinging with 3 different forms, and they each have their own unique attack and hard to reach weak points. Your Z-target dancing skills better be at their best here, and you might need to make use of any and all equipment you have. In the end, you'll be questioning how the puppet is more powerful than the psychotic Gerudo. Number 7, Virgil, Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening.
Unfortunately, our souls are at odds, brother.
You could consider Virgil the filter point in Devil May Cry 3 if you found yourself feeling like you're just mashing your head into the ceiling. We can't blame you. Virgil is an obscenely hard boss in an already obscenely hard game. Expect him to teleport around like a madman and spam his devil trigger every few seconds. Yes, it is absolutely infuriating, and may Lord have mercy on your soul if you're playing on any difficulty above normal. Remember, Capcom thought we enjoyed absurdly tough games. We do, but not on this level, man. Number 6, Rodon, Bayonetta. Good old Father Rodon is a hidden boss, and you know what that means. Time to crank up the difficulty to 11. Rodon is the hardest boss of the first Bayonetta game, harder than Jubileus. The dude can land ridiculously hard hits at a ridiculously fast rate, and if you whiff even one attack, he will make you feel your mistakes and punish you harshly. You're best off leaving this for when you feel most comfortable with your abilities. Really, there's no shame in saving Rodon for another, less stressful time. Number 5, Alpha 152, Dead or Alive 4. When it comes to Alpha 152, you are no longer playing DOA 4. DOA 4 is playing you. Alpha 152 has some of the most annoying combos and throws of any character in the entire franchise. Some of its throws can take out half of your health bar. Its combos, however, can lock you into almost every stun state in the game, making it next to impossible to counter its attacks. And don't be surprised if you get KO'd from getting launched into a wall or slammed onto the electrified floor. Number 4, Maneater, Demon Souls. We could have chosen several bosses from Demon Souls. The Dragon God and the Flame Lurker came to mind almost immediately, but the Maneater is on another level of. At first, it's just you and him on a narrow bridge, duking it out like any other boss. Suddenly, there's a second Maneater? Yes, you will have to fight 2 of these Feral Fang Feasts, and they are both equally annoying with their lunge attacks and screeching. Prepare to die a lot. Number 3, Nyx's Avatar, Persona 3.
Everyone, get ready! Nyx is preparing to attack!
When it comes to the traditional RPG, The Nyx avatar was grueling from start to finish. For starters, this thing can inflict any status ailment featured in the game, meaning you will need to be packing as many items to cure your party members and recover HP and SP. But that's not even the worst part. The Nyx avatar is going to be a painfully long fight for you. Care to guess why? Yes, it does have phases. Not 3, not 4, not even 5. We're talking 14 phases. In other words, you're going to have a long and arduous fight ahead of you. Number 2, Sephiroth, Kingdom Hearts. The Nyx avatar will always be known as one of the hardest bosses in turn-based RPGs, but action RPGs? That spot belongs to Sephiroth. His bizarre appearance in Kingdom Hearts was neat at first, but then came them hands. The one-winged fraud comes packing with 15 health bars and all of the most aggressive attacks we've come to expect from him. Even on the easiest difficulty, many of us probably wound up leaving him after a few attempts. Perhaps we gave Lingering Will too little credit. Number 1, Ares, God of War.
Have joined me, Kratos. You should have been stronger.
Ares is, by far, the hardest boss of the 2000s, and there will never be a boss so awkward and cheap as him from that decade. The now former God of War was a total pain in the ass. Look, it wasn't even because of the controls at this point. Ares is just weird because the game suddenly turns into an arena fighter where you and him share a health bar that functions like a game of tug of war. You hit him to gain more health. He hits you for more health. But what makes the whole fight more aggravating is how some of his attacks are unblockable and can land several hits in one go. You better believe we sat comfortably on his throne and danced on his grave.
I was trying to make you a great warrior.
What's the toughest boss of the 2000s that you faced? Did they make our list?
A great slam and then some. Here goes.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 most difficult bosses to have debuted between the years 2010 and 2019.
Don't worry. We'll make it look really familiar for you. Now then, do not disappoint us.
Number 10, Emil, Nier Automata.
Round thing, you okay?
Watch out. They're still alive.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Ah yes, another one of those the merchant is secretly a boss types of characters. Going through the laborious Emil's Memories questline was already somewhat daunting, but that's nothing compared to fighting the main man himself. Emil, despite his ridiculous and creepy moon mask, is no laughing matter.
Years of multiplying, years of fighting and wars. Their sense of self just deteriorated.
The dude is at max level and can cover the room in bombs and lasers. Taking a hit from even one of these can put you at death's door if you're not careful. Our advice? Save it for when you have the best stats and equipment you can get. Number 9, Absolute Radiance, Hollow Knight. To this day, Hollow Knight is one of the toughest action platformers you can play, and if you want to be one of the best players, you'll have to step up to the ultimate challenge. The Absolute Radiance has an absurd amount of speed and attack power, making every hit feel like it could be the killing blow. Even though you've probably got all the best stuff equipped, this godly moth is guaranteed to make you sweat and see the light. Number 8, Metal Gear Sahelanthropus, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
You need to stop it, boss. Destroy Sahelanthropus.
Even by Metal Gear standards, Sahelanthropus was freaking ridiculous. Most boss fights have the simple formula of learning the gimmick and or finding a weak spot to attack. This mecha doesn't have either. There's no gimmick, there's no weakness, there's only pain, and the only way to defend against that pain is by shooting everything you have at it. And yes, the fight goes on for way, way longer than anyone would have liked. Kojima knows how to punish. Number 7, Caroline and Justine, Persona 5.
It shows how special we think you are. Consider this an honor. You should be crying tears of joy. Okay, let's get started.
Though they may not be the hardest bosses of the Persona games, Caroline and Justine do effortlessly show that they're a bigger threat than Yaldabaoth. First off, they have the ability to use just about every attack you have. Yes, every attack, and that's including your trump card, the all-out attack. You need to make use of every party member's strengths because if you lose even one, the duo can end the whole fight. You're also going to need to figure out a way to down both of them in one turn before one can revive the other. Easier said than done. Number 6, Morgan Freeman, South Park: The Fractured But Whole.
All right, my turn. Mega fist fight.
Once again, Super Crit comes out on top.
As ridiculous as many of Fractured's boss fights can be, Morgan Freeman is a boss where you'll have to buckle down and sweat a bit. The actor turned owner of Freeman's Tacos boasts the highest health pool of any boss in the game, and his attacks can cover almost all of the tiny grid you're given to move around in. It'd be wise to approach the fight after you've taken down Mitch Connor, gained the Final Fart ability, and amassed a number of summons to spam. Oh, and make sure you have a good multi-class build for yourself.
Super Craig to the rescue.
Storm is over, guys. We won.
Number 5, Dr. Kahl's Robot, Cuphead. Cuphead is already known for its rigorous gauntlet of boss fights, but Dr. Kahl's Robot surpasses the likes of Grim Matchstick and even the devil himself. Throughout the wallop, you'll have projectiles coming from all directions between the robot's laser barriers, and homing missiles. If you can get through the first phase or two, the last half of the fight shouldn't be that big of a problem for you. Still, those first two are pretty rough. We're just glad it didn't get crazier during the expert version. Number 4, Sans, Undertale. This jokester has forever haunted those who dared to attempt the genocide run, and it didn't take him much effort. Sans will flood your box with projectiles, prominently showing the bullet hell side of this RPG. And it isn't enough to simply dodge attacks. He has so many at his disposal that it might prove challenging remembering everything he can do and how to counter it. And don't bother trying to attack early on. He'll dodge everything until you're finally given the opportunity to land the final blow. Number 3, Orphan of Kos, Bloodborne. Bloodborne is notorious for how it constantly puts players on their toes. The Orphan of Kos is no exception. Whereas many bosses do have decent tells to help you parry or block, that's all thrown out the window with this beast. The Orphan of Kos behaves in a wildly unpredictable manner, making it frustratingly difficult to anticipate whether you can block, parry, or counterattack. And when you get it to low health, the second phase begins where all of its attacks are far stronger and faster than before. Oh, and good luck avoiding the lightning. Number 2, Sigrun, God of War.
She healed the wounds of both mortals and...
Sigrun has arguably become the hardest boss in the God of War series. The Queen of the Valkyries has become infamous for her ridiculous stats. Despite using many of the same attacks we've already seen from her grunts, Sigrun boasts faster movement, higher attack power, and lack of a real weakness. Those worthy of the God of War moniker can only soldier on and whittle down her impressive health pool, and have a resurrection stone on hand because you're gonna need it. Number 1. Ishin the Sword Saint. Sekiro's shadows die twice. This legendary swordsman has 3 phases that feel like they last a friggin' eternity. So there's Strike 1. Strike 2 is the unbelievable range he boasts. Seriously, this guy can land hits from Saturn and land them hard. But Strike 3 is where many players probably broke a controller. He's got AoE attacks. All of this makes for a boss that might be hard to love for some, but honestly, we wouldn't want it any other way. Congratulations, From Software, you made a boss that many still can't overcome. What was the hardest boss for you in the 2010s? Did they make our list?
Now that was nostalgic. Of all of them, the bosses that have stuck with me all these years are Sephiroth, Verdugo, Orphan of Kos, and of course Ishin the Sword Saint, all incredible and all very time-consuming. Alright, for our grand finale, we'll be honoring the hardest duo, secret, and final bosses in gaming, so hold on to your controllers because there's a lot to cover here.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 hardest duo boss fights in video games. For this list, we'll be looking at games that upped the difficulty by having you face 2 bosses at once. Have you faced any of these duos? Which frustrated you the most? Number 10. Master Hand and Crazy Hand. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Master Hand returned as the boss for Classic Mode from the original Super Smash Bros. However, depending on certain conditions, he had a little backup to batter you around. Crazy Hand, as is befitting of his name, is much wilder and quicker than its brother. Crazy Hand's moves are generally more chaotic versions of Master Hand's. Where the right hand will simply slam the ground, the left will spasm, possibly catching you to deal more damage. Trying to hit one while avoiding the other can be a pain. It's not as if they'll wait for you to prepare before unleashing an attack. It's entirely probable that you'll get bounced around from one hand to the other. Number 9. Magni and Modi, God of War.
Oh no, brother. The little freak's got a bow. What are we gonna do? What's yours?
As you might expect, Thor's sons don't go easy on Kratos and Atreus. Magni's formidable stature makes it so he hits Kratos hard with little opportunity to interrupt him, and Modi comes equipped with a shield to block your attacks. If you start beating one of them too badly, the other will abandon their fight with Atreus just to stab you in the back. Adding to the frustration are their electric attacks, either by imbuing their weapons with it or producing AoE blasts. They also have a tendency to produce fog, hindering your vision to attack you off guard. At least Atreus is there to provide backup, but Magni and Modi undoubtedly make a good team.
No! How did you... You have no idea. You son of a bitch!
Number 8. Dracula and Death. Castlevania, Portrait of Ruin. It should come as no surprise that a team-up between the world's most famous vampire and literal death itself provides a pretty tough boss fight. At the end of the game, Death is able to resurrect his master Dracula, and the duo will proceed to try and wipe the floor with you. While Dracula likes to teleport around the room and shoot fireballs, Death will swiftly dive bomb you or stab you from above. With damage coming from all directions, you'll certainly have your reflexes tested. Like many duo bosses before them, they'll fuse into one unholy being for the second phase. They're even tougher as one, covering the arena in attacks that deal heavy damage. Number 7. Caroline and Justine, Persona 5.
Now, let's get started, inmate.
You needn't hold back, though you will soon realize that you lack the time to even consider that option.
Get ready. Here we go.
When it comes to Caroline and Justine, looks are definitely deceiving. Although this fight is optional, it's one worth seeking out for those who want a challenge. Don't feel bad about unleashing your full might on children because they certainly won't be holding back. While the turn-based mechanics mean your reflexes won't be tested, Caroline and Justine use some very powerful attacks, including a variety of elemental moves. Not only are these two powerful, but they also have the ability to heal and revive one another, which can make the fight last fairly long. You'll likely be pretty strong yourself by the time you face them, but they'll still test your patience.
Not bad, inmate.
Number 6. Leku and Neku, Okami. These two demonic owls have fantastic designs, but will present you with a barrage of attacks. While Amaterasu at least has Oki to help her out, Leku and Neku won't bother aiming their attacks at anyone other than you. The owls will produce various objects from their hats, all of which will come crashing towards you unless you use the proper brushstroke to dispel them. If you use the wrong one or don't do it quickly enough, you better get out of the way. And they won't take turns in doling out their attacks. They'll also occasionally swoop down at you and slow down time just to be bigger pains. Stupid giant demon birds! Number 5. Pakos Amethyst and Pakos Luvulite, Final Fantasy XIII 2. You can probably guess which elements these two giants like to use, and each is resistant to the other. They'll make you keep a vigilant watch on your party's health as they rain down ice and fire. But they'll also slam down on any given party member, knocking off a massive chunk of HP in one fell swoop. Like Caroline and Justine from Persona 5, they can also revive one another. Only here, they'll revive their fallen partner with the same amount of HP the one still standing has. So if you decide to focus on one first instead of spreading out the attacks, you'll be met with an incredibly annoying outcome.
The goddess wishes to be.
Let none escape!
Number 4. Agni and Rudra, Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening. Devil May Cry is one of Capcom's toughest franchises, and it was only a matter of time before it threw a duo boss fight at us. Agni and Rudra are two demonic swords that use two decapitated demons to do their bidding. Yes, it's very cool, but also very difficult. They'll charge around the arena slicing and dicing, with Agni using fire attacks and Rudra using wind. They also know how to fight defensively, successfully blocking your combos. By getting in between them, you can cause them to hurt each other. But if your dodging skills aren't up to snuff, you'll just get hit with an onslaught of attacks. On the bright side, defeating them does unlock them as weapons. Number 3. Yuki Onna and Oda Nobunaga. Neo. As a game heavily inspired by Dark Souls, Neo has some pretty formidable boss fights, and just like From Software's groundbreaking release, one of its toughest has you face 2 foes at once. Both Yuki Onna and Oda are pretty fast, which is already more than a little annoying, but they both also love to use elemental attacks. The yokai Yuki Onna is a master of ice, while Oda can ingrain his sword with a variety of elements, such as fire. The entire ordeal is enough to drive you mad with rage, as they lunge across the arena, freezing you, burning you, electrocuting you, and so much more. Number 2. Theseus and Asterius. Hades.
And may the gods show you some mercy, for I shall not.
Hades is designed for you to die many times and was praised for placing emphasis on story progression each time you perish. That doesn't make every death we faced at the hands of this team any easier to swallow though. The Minotaur tries his best to get up close, moving surprisingly quickly and pummeling you into submission. Theseus will use the range of his spear to attack you off guard. It can be incredibly frustrating as he can also defend most attacks from the front with his shield. That's not to mention Theseus' second phase where he calls on the aid of a random god or goddess to help smite you. The whole fight is a bombardment that will certainly keep you on your toes. Number 1. Godskin Duo. Elden Ring. If we didn't limit ourselves to one From Software game, this list would be packed with their hulking behemoths like Ornstein and Smaug from Dark Souls. While those brutes are certainly tough, we believe their legacy was surpassed by the Godskin duo of Elden Ring. The fight consists of 2 previous bosses, but knowing what's coming won't really help you. The pair uses a variety of attacks that are a pain alone and devastating if unleashed simultaneously. These include Apostle's long scythe and Noble's proclivity toward rolling around and crashing into everything around him. Thankfully, multiplayer allows you to even the playing field, or at least attempts to. Even with a friend, these two don't go down easily.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 hardest secret bosses in video games.
Don't worry, we'll make it look really familiar for you.
Now then, do not disappoint us.
For this list, we'll be looking at gaming's most challenging optional bosses found off the beaten path. Have you vanquished any of these foes? Which did you find to be the hardest? Number 10, Emil, Nier Automata. You wouldn't expect a little robot merchant to have much fight in him, but Emil packs a lot of power. In order to face him, you must have completed the lengthy side quest Emil's Memories. On a second playthrough, you'll then be able to find his home where a level 99 boss fight awaits you. It doesn't help that the room is pitch black, but Emil would still be a force to be reckoned with in the light. As one of the highest level bosses in the game, every attack is deadly, especially his spinning lasers and exploding copies of his own head. With so much destruction covering the area, this is certainly a challenge best saved for last. Number 9, Gna, God of War Ragnarok.
Good! Pay for what you've done!
Step aside, Sigrun. The real Valkyrie Queen is here. After putting an end to the vile Odin in God of War Ragnarok, you can take on the optional task of cleaning up his remaining supporters. That includes Gna, leader of the Allfather's most capable warriors. As we'd come to learn, Gna puts even Thor to shame in her lust for blood, as evidenced by a tough-as-nails brawl. Similar to the 2018 game's Secret Fight, you'll be met with unbelievable strength and speed befitting the highest of enemy levels. Her elemental attacks deal a lot of damage, she's hard to predict, and her unblockable grabs are infuriating. She's a fitting final obstacle for the God of War.
I failed! Oh.
Number 8. Justine and Caroline, Persona 5.
Now then, do not disappoint us.
The fight against this duo can only be found in New Game Plus, which is entirely fitting considering how difficult it is. Justine and Caroline may be outnumbered by you and your friends, but that won't matter much at all. They know exactly which weaknesses to target and have access to all the skills you do, including all-out attack. If they knock the party down, that means curtains, as their all-out attack can instantly kill you. Even more troublesome than that is their tendency to revive one another after they go down. You can access this fight early in a second playthrough, but we definitely wouldn't recommend it until much, much later.
We lost to a human?
Number 7. Rodan, Bayonetta series. The Umbran Witch has had to face a lot of challenging foes over the years, but most can't hold a candle to Rodan. Thankfully, the weaponsmith is usually an ally to Bayonetta, but he's there for players who want the game's ultimate challenge. His fight in the original game is unlocked after collecting 10 million halos. He moves with incredible grace and speed as he easily pummels you into submission. He's impossible to stun, and his dangerous combos can knock off gigantic chunks of health at a time. Meanwhile, he has multiple health bars to work through. He's kept up this legacy by appearing as a secret boss in the sequels.
Just try not to die on your feet!
Number 6. Culex, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. It may be a Mario game, but it's also from the studio behind Final Fantasy. Super Mario RPG is a beloved blend of Nintendo's mascot and Square's mechanics and design. Part of that design is including an absurdly hard secret boss that'll make you question how good you are at the game. Culex comes from an alternate dimension in search of strong fighters. In the battle, you'll also have to contend with 4 crystals, all of which use different elemental attacks. They collectively have over 12,000 HP, and while you can just go for Culex, the impressive amount of damage that comes from all 5 combatants makes that a poor choice. Number 5. Lingering Will, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Found only in the Final Mix version of the game, Lingering Will just may be the toughest boss Kingdom Hearts has to offer. You can face this optional baddie after beating the game and completing all worlds, which opens a portal in Disney Castle. The boss wastes no time mounting an offensive of intimidating attacks with ferocious speed. The possessed armor can also change its Keyblade shape for different types of attacks. And if he isn't bad enough to deal with, there are his supporter drones that chase you around, firing lasers. This fight requires you to perfect the timing of your most powerful attacks, which must be done in small windows when the Lingering Will isn't hurling damage your way. Number 4. Nameless King, Dark Souls 3. Of the many spirit-crushing fights players can find in the Dark Souls series, the Nameless King is one of the greatest sources of rage. After ringing the bell of the Great Belfry, you can square off against him at the Archdragon Peak. He'll choose not to fight fair during his first phase, riding his pet wyvern around. Naturally, the beast has some heavy attacks to watch out for, but the rider is who you should really fear. He's much faster and stronger than the average boss from the series, and his lightning attacks can be a particular pain. Both the pet and the master also like to attack from above, so it's a fight that constantly has you on your toes. Number 3. Ozma, Final Fantasy IX. The Final Fantasy series has clearly known its fair share of well-hidden and ridiculously powerful optional foes, fittingly dubbed super bosses. Which of these fights is the hardest varies from player to player, but Ozma is certainly a piece of work. Players face it in a Chocobo's Air Garden after the longest side quest in the game, and should expect a high level of frustration. It knows Curse, which can inflict multiple status effects at once to all party members, and Meteor, which does a random amount of damage up to 9,999. It can also absorb your party's MP and heal as a counterattack, which it will probably do when it's close to death. Number 2. Malenia, Blade of Miquella, Elden Ring. From Software has crafted a reputation for delivering the most challenging bosses in gaming. So, when Elden Ring released in 2022, fans everywhere made it their mission to track down the most demanding enemy within. Who they found, and were likely promptly destroyed by, was Malenia, Blade of Miquella. Fought at the end of an optional dungeon, the demigod can easily close the distance between you and unleash a flurry attack that will quickly and drastically drop your HP. During her second phase, her attacks gain the Scarlet Rot status effect, which deals damage over time. That's not to mention the fact that every hit she lands heals her, which only adds to the stress.
Your strength. Extraordinary.
Number 1. Demi-Fiend, Megami Tensei series. After playing the role of protagonist in Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, the Demi-Fiend went on to become the hardest optional boss in the series and all of gaming. He has appeared in several entries and will prove an insurmountable challenge to most players. For starters, any party members with moves that counter his abilities will be insta-killed at the start of the fight. He has no weaknesses himself, he'll constantly cycle through minions to keep fighting you, and he'll fully heal himself once he reaches half of his 60,000 HP. That's not even going into his attacks, all of which deal major damage, and one of which has a chance to insta-kill and targets the whole party.
Let's go! The hell are you thinking? Played college ball, you know.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 hardest final bosses in video games. For this list, we'll be looking at the toughest boss fights that are the last in the main stories of their respective games. So no DLC or post-game bosses here. Also, since many of these bosses are story important, some spoilers ahead. Number 20, Hades. Hades.
You wish to have your mortal-colored blood spill once again upon this bed of snow, then fine. Let us proceed.
The god of the underworld who lends his name to both his realm and the game, Hades will do his utmost to ensure that Zagreus never leaves. Not only does he do a ton of damage over a wide area, but Hades can also hit you with skulls that will make you way more susceptible to hits. Ranged weapons tend to work best against him, and using dashes and the environment to keep away from him will be essential. Bring as much Death Defiance as you can, learn his patterns, and be prepared for pain, because Hades has 2 phases and you probably won't get them through the first time. And if you fail, you have to restart at the game's beginning. No pressure. Number 19, Taboo, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This ethereal being is the endgame villain of the Subspace Emissary campaign and will put you through your paces. Taboo may be a big question mark when it comes to motivations, but players' most pressing questions about him is why he's so difficult. The strange entity can teleport around the arena, and several of its moves hit a wide area and/or can be instant kills, depending on the difficulty. Thankfully, you get 5 different characters as single stocks, so if you get knocked out, you get 4 tries. Be careful though, this is the creature that pimp-slapped Master Hand, a literal glove. Number 18, Shadow Queen, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. The final bosses of Mario games are generally pretty easy, but the Shadow Queen is the exception. A shadowy fiend that possesses Princess Peach, the Shadow Queen has multiple phases and can easily destroy you if you're not prepared. And can steal your HP and restore hers if you don't block. Her multiple hands can make things tricky too, since they can regenerate, even if you take them out. The Shadow Queen's strongest move is quite nasty too, but thankfully you can avoid it with Vivian's Veil ability. If you can hit her hard and fast, and take advantage of the free healing you'll get in her second phase, you'll be able to end her reign for good. Number 17, Mr. X, Resident Evil 2.
Who is that?
It's just me. So you can put that thing away.
The T-00 Tyrant, or Mr. X, is an implacable mutant super soldier in a trench coat that pursues the player throughout Resident Evil 2's remake. Unfortunately, you'll be stuck facing Mr. X in the finale of Leon's campaign, in an elevator. The Tyrant will come at you with his claws in the enclosed space, which can be tough to avoid. One of his attacks is basically guaranteed to kill you too. Shooting his exposed heart can damage him, and the more he's damaged, the more rubble will fall, giving you cover from his attacks. If you have enough powerful weapons and/or you're a good enough shot, you'll eventually receive a rocket launcher to finally finish him off. Number 16, The Devil, Cuphead. If you dance with the devil, you're gonna get burned. The grinning goat-like demon can make this battle figuratively and literally hellish for you throughout his 4 phases. The devil will throw plenty of attacks your way in the first phase, frequently shapeshifting into several tough-to-dodge forms, with his minions proving an annoyance too. The next phases are set on progressively fewer sets of platforms, as the now giant devil throws attacks, minions, and poker chips that you must dodge and shoot through, while also attacking his eyes. Invincibility and the smoke bomb dash are essentials here, and if you can endure, you'll wallop the devil and get your souls back. Number 15, Dr. Neo Cortex, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time.
But I can't kill him because that would kill me. So I guess that means I'll have to kill you.
Crash Bandicoot games have some brutally difficult platforming, and the boss fights are no exception. The final confrontation with Crash's mad scientist nemesis Dr. Neo Cortex sees the villain take all of your Quantum Mask power-ups and use them against you. You must jump between disappearing platforms, leap or duck over/under lasers, and throw his own assistants back at him. Oh, and you have to do all this while dealing with the effects of the masks, which include turning your world upside down. The Doctor may be trying to change the past, but there's no way to undo our many failures in this fight.
Not like this!
Number 14, Ravenbeak, Metroid Dread. This power-mad Chozo leader is the definition of challenging. Ravenbeak goes all out right from the start, with strong attacks and an aura of lightning. He also has 4 phases to get through. While some of his attacks, namely the ones shaped like spheres, can be destroyed for health and ammo, in general, you're going to want to hit him with missiles as much as possible. Oh, and counter every chance you get. If you haven't gotten that down by this point, this won't go well for you. If you're persistent and learn his patterns, this terrifying metal Birdman will eventually get his grand comeuppance courtesy of a power beam to the face. Number 13, Galdera, the Fallen, Octopath Traveler. The Octopath Traveler games go all out when it comes to their high fantasy final bosses. While it was tempting to discuss the Wicked God Vide from Octopath Traveler 2, our choice goes to the first game's big bad. Not only is this a tough multi-stage boss, but you also have to fight each stage with a different set of 4 party members, so if you didn't level up everyone equally, your chances are pretty abysmal.
What is the logical course of action? Nothing will survive the war!
Additionally, you have to fight Galdera after a gauntlet of 8 bosses, and if you lose, you need to fight them all again. And that's not even touching on his obscenely powerful attacks and ability to become randomly immune to some of his own weaknesses. What a nightmare.
Time to close up shop.
Number 12, Otakemaru, Neo 2. Given the bar set by the rest of the bosses in this game, and those of the games that inspired it, Otakemaru certainly lives up to the standard. This powerful yokai can shift between the same forms the players can, making his attacks faster and more powerful and his own body more durable. While he loses his ability at around half health, Otakemaru then gains access to powerful elemental attacks. If that weren't enough, his last phase has huge swords that can insta-kill you. A protracted battle is definitely going to favor him, so if you can, try to take him down as fast as possible. Number 11, Zero, Drakengard 3. For most of Drakengard 3, it alternates between either hack and slash or rail shooter gameplay. The final boss in the final timeline is neither of those. Instead, Zero is fought through an elaborate rhythm game sequence. Timing the button presses can be excruciatingly difficult, even after practicing dozens of times. Considering you have to restart the whole thing if you mess up, you'll be playing it at least that many times. It's a sad commentary on the difficulty of this boss fight when the best advice the internet has to give on beating it is to cheat by syncing up a video while playing. Number 10, Nick's Avatar, Persona 3.
Yes, the Arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Attaining one's dream requires a stern will and unfailing determination.
There are a lot of multi-stage final bosses, but Nick's Avatar puts most of them to shame. To beat this personification of death, you need to plow through 14 different phases. 14!
The time has come. All shall perish.
The absolute grind it can be to get through all of them can take up to several hours, and if you're underleveled, they're going to be stressful ones. It doesn't have any major exploitable weaknesses either. Plus, its final phase has a lot more HP, and if it charms your party members, they'll attack each other. Nick's avatar is a marathon of a final boss, but it can be rewarding. After all, the Arcana is the means by which all is revealed.
The Arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Alongside time exists fate, the bearer of cruelty.
Number 9. Mike Tyson, Punch-Out. The game may label this battle the dream fight, but getting into the ring with Kid Dynamite in this old school NES game feels like a straight up nightmare. Mike Tyson is the last bout in Punch-Out, and it's a good thing too, since anything tougher than this would have us swearing off the game for good. The fictional version of the real-world boxer will uppercut you so hard you'll be knocked out instantly if you're not blocking. Add in some rapid-fire punches, and you've got a recipe for a classic boss fight that still gives gamers PTSD. Your best bet, besides a lot of trial and error, is to hit Tyson while he's blinking. Number 8. Necron, Final Fantasy IX. The embodiment of dread and death, Necron can be one of the most difficult boss fights in any Final Fantasy game, since it lives up to its reputation. Really, it just comes down to luck and what you have equipped. This is due to its wide variety of high-damaging moves, as well as Grand Cross, which can have a random effect on your whole party. Abilities that protect you from statuses can help, as can auto abilities, since they provide passive buffs. Necron may be as inevitable as death, but that doesn't mean you have to fear it. Number 7. Senator Stephen Armstrong, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
What the hell are you? Why don't you stick around and find out?
This boss battle may be packed with more memes than you can shake a nanomachine at, but it's also punishingly difficult.
Nanomachine, son!
The warmongering senator will throw a Metal Gear at you before taking you on with his own enhanced body in a fight that lasts several phases.
That's the best you got.
The timing to parry his attacks can be tricky to get down, but if you're patient, you can master it. Dodging certainly helps too. Given enough effort, you may get your chance to slice and dice the ripped politician and ensure he never holds office, or anything else, ever again. Number 6. Virgil, Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening.
You're never gonna be like Father. We're wasting time!
Dante's brother is devilishly difficult whenever you encounter him, but the final battle of DMC3 is arguably the hardest and a serious contender for the most difficult in the series. Virgil can teleport, which is never not annoying in a boss, deflect your bullets, and swing his sword faster than you can blink. And then he has his own devil trigger form, which you should avoid like the plague. However, after he uses his, you can use yours to get in a good counterattack. In fact, countering is pretty much the name of the game here. Time to get motivated.
Dante.
Number 5. Wily Capsule, Mega Man 7. Dr. Wily really outdid himself this time. This floating vehicle is infamous for a number of reasons. It can disappear and reappear in various positions across the screen, which can make hitting it difficult. Not only that, but its one weakness, Springman's weapon, Wild Coil, is hard to hit with and barely does any damage. Honestly, you're better off using Freezeman's weapon, since at least you can shoot that diagonally to hit the capsule up in the corners. Lastly, its attacks are fast, hard to dodge, and can freeze or burn you. Given how tough it is, we have to wonder why Wily bothers with Robot Masters at all. Number 4. The Radiance, Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight's pantheon of bosses are absolutely brutal, and they saved the hardest for last. The Radiance is a luminous moth that may look heavenly, but she'll put you through hell. She'll rain attacks on you from nearly every direction, so keeping on your toes is essential. Unfortunately, she generally stays so high up that it's hard to hit the Radiance consistently. Made all the worse by the fact that should she smite you, you're going to have to fight your way through the Hollow Knight in order to reach her again. Number 3. Sans, Undertale. You're gonna have a bad time with this boss fight. Sans is the infamous final boss of the Genocide run of Undertale. While killing most monsters in this run is fairly easy, Sans unleashes a devastating opening salvo that will obliterate you if you aren't expecting it. Then, he'll dodge nearly every attack you throw at him and force you through brutal platforming segments. The onslaught of attacks never lets up, and Sans will even attack you while you use the menu. It's a good thing his song is such a banger, because you'll be hearing it for as long as it takes for you to master this sinfully challenging fight. Number 2. Radagon of the Golden Order, Elden Ring. It was only a matter of time before we got to a From Software game. The enormously popular Elden Ring also has an enormously difficult final boss. Radagon has a wide variety of deadly and unpredictable moves at his disposal. Dodging is absolutely your best strategy in this fight, although bringing protection against Radagon's holy attacks and using fire, one of his only weaknesses, certainly don't hurt either. And just when you've finally beaten him, you have to fight the Elden Beast immediately afterwards, who is no slouch in the difficulty department. Number 1. Ishin the Sword Saint, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Oh, and you thought we were done with From Software? Not on your life. Right off the bat, the fact that you must fight Ishin directly after another boss, Genichiro, sets the bar high on difficulty. But the Swordmaster himself is no walk through a field, even if you have to fight him in one. Ishin has 3 surprisingly long phases, a ton of moves that are hard to anticipate, AoE techniques, and other changes to his fighting style as it goes on. Defeating the Sword Saint requires saintly patience and dedication, and rest assured, he will break you.
there you have it. We got through every difficult boss list there is, and we're still standing. We hope our selection of hardest bosses got your fingers itching to test your skills and challenge yourself. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.